Welcome back to the Haddonfield Registry. I'm your host, Mr. October, aka Slasher with an X. To start off with, thanks to everyone who submitted questions, and also thank you to everyone who congratulated me on the milestone. Okay, so the first question was from user KK3XG2CB8C, which coincidentally was my grandma's name too. They asked, what is your favorite slasher movie? So I have two answers, a boring one and a more interesting one. Sorry, I'm recording this with my cat in the room, so he might be making environmental noise that he doesn't normally make in the other videos. Boring answer. My favorite slasher of all time is Halloween 1978. I bleed orange, as my Tennessee Vols loving father would say. It's what I consider a perfect film, up there with Rocky, Alien, Shawshank Redemption, American Gangster, The Green Mile, Music Man, the first two Star Wars films, etc. But you all probably knew that just by looking at me. The second, more interesting answer is that I have several favorite slasher films. Halloween sits at the top just for being a perfect film, but I have a few that I love equally and have watched just as many times. Some of those would be Halloween 2, Freddy vs. Jason, Child's Play. For Halloween 2, despite what most say, I find it just as scary as the original film. For Freddy vs. Jason, it was the best way you could have combined those franchises. For Child's Play, this may be surprising for many, especially those who have known me online before setting up this channel, but I actually think the original Child's Play is an exceptionally well-made film, almost on par with Halloween. Yes, it's silly, yes, it's high concept, but still, top-tier performances throughout, cutting-edge VFX for the time, and one of the best child performances in a horror film from Alex Vincent. The fact that it's a tale of the loss of innocence just makes the story that much more impactful and heartbreaking. I like 2 and 3, but they don't compare to the original's genuinely amazing execution and presentation. Oh, and the theme is peak. Both of the Child's Play films have peak themes. Oh, and the remake is good, argue with the wall. Some other favorites I have that are a bit more obscure and not that good would be House of Wax, My Bloody Valentine 2009, and Hellfest. And just to give more answers, I also really like Screams 4, 5, and 6, the Elm Street Dream Trilogy, and the Halloween Trilogy. The second question comes from @Squishy246. They ask, any plans on doing 2 big videos for Nightmare on Elm Street like you did with Friday the 13th? They also ask if I'm going to compile the Halloween movie timeline vids into one video. Short answer, yes, I'll cover Nightmare in some form, and yes, I'll combine the Halloween Thorn timeline videos into one long video. Long answer. Right now, I don't know if the Nightmare on Elm Street timeline vids will be released per film or as a whole in 2 parts or even 1 part. But no matter what, once all the smaller releases are finished, I will always go back and combine the parts for a longer video, since I know that's the main draw of the channel for most. I've been trying to do this with Under the Lake, but to give you an idea of how unpredictable the content ID system on YouTube is, when I went to upload the combined video, I was getting copyright flags for parts of the video that weren't flagged in parts 1 and 2. They flagged all the footage of the original film, part 4 and part 5, meaning almost the entire video needs the watermark now. Let me know if you guys are okay with that, and I'll upload the censored version. Also, I fucking love Puss in Boots. Our next question comes from @ICP96. They ask, what is your favorite non-slasher horror movie franchise? Good question. Well, they're all good questions, but still. If we're talking franchises, the original Universal monster films, specifically the Frankenstein films. Wolfman, Invisible Man, and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfmans are my favorite individuals of the whole bunch, though. But Frankenstein up into Ghost of Frankenstein, and then Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein. Frankenstein films are my favorite. For something more modern, Alien. The first one is the best one, but I like them all, except for Resurrection. In fact, the way that I know, like, Friday the 13th and Halloween pretty inside and out, I mean, I'm not, like, 100% know everything about everything, but I'm, more more terminally online than some other people. But Alien is another franchise that I'm like really tapped into like that. For non-franchise, non-slasher horror, I really like The Descent, Trick or Treat, Mungo Lake, the Poughkeepsie Tapes, and The Changeling with George C. Scott. Next question comes from @ThomasOrsini9735. They ask, do you consider the Alien movies to be in the slasher genre? Kind of feels like a 2-part question now. When I was younger, I was very adamant that Alien, Terminator, and Predator were slasher films, but my main slasher experience came from the Friday the 13th and Halloween sequels, which really don't represent the entire genre, just a big portion of it. It's very easy to see those films as slashers when you're 10 and the only comparison is this rotting sack of meat in a hockey mask. Nowadays, I understand it's commonly accepted slasher movies need to have villains who are, or once were, human. The intimacy between killer and victim is important to the subgenre. That said, genres are just words we invented, and nothing ever fits neatly into a category. Alien is 100% utilizing the same tropes Halloween used the year prior, and it's no secret Ridley Scott admitted he was making a standard hack-and-slash film just set in space. I'm also pretty sure he's even referenced the similarities to the slasher genre or Halloween itself, so I know it was all deliberate on his part. So if you consider Alien a slasher movie, I say you're not wrong. I think Predator and Terminator don't have as strong of an argument for their inclusion, given that they're definitely action films first. But then again, the Maniac Cop trilogy is an action slasher franchise. Genres can hybridize with other genres. Next question comes from @CranberryDadSauce. They ask, any significant meaning behind your pseudonyms? Answer's no, not specifically. Slasher just looked cool to me, and I began saying with an X as part of the nickname when I started making these videos, since I knew it could be confusing hearing slasher and slasher. Then Mr. October just came about because, I'm a pumpkin. No relation to Reggie Jackson. Okay, our last question comes from @PrincessMolly. They asked, all of this? Longest question is going to have the longest answer. So they're essentially asking two things. Are the slashers in my slasherverse all coming from a shared origin/power source, or are they separate and just being picked as avatars for faceless gods to wage wars like toy soldiers? No and no. No merging of backstories or power sources, not unless I have a good reason to, and even then I'd most likely just describe two characters as actions or behaviors similarly and leave it to the audience to connect what they want to connect. The second part, are they being sponsored by dark gods to wage war? Also no, but I get how the title implies that. War of the Dark Hearts is a holdover from an earlier draft of this concept, which was honestly pretty bad. I had this whole backstory with this cosmic entity deep in the recesses of space known as the Dark Pendulum. The pendulum would swing back and forth, and at the peak of each swing, either a miracle or a tragedy occurs throughout the universe. But for unknown purposes, nearing the end of the 1900s, the pendulum is swinging faster and more erratically, and every peak results in only tragedy, and the results are growing in severity. This was how I explained the sudden debut of slashers around the same time, but that was way too comic booky and took away each slasher's individual agency and mystique. But even then, it was more so that the pendulum swings coincided with the slasher's origins. It wasn't literally creating them, like it swung forward and 6-year-old Michael Myers has stabbed his sister. Now it swung backwards and Pamela Voorhees has slain several teenagers but was decapitated. It was just flavor text. Then my second draft did away with the shared origin and the title, then referred to a prophecy that said the slashers were to have 13 conflicts leading up to the new millennium, with the 13th battle having some vague world-ending consequence. But that felt too Kingdom Heartsy and still sucked. So now, the current iteration has 0 world-ending consequences, 0 shared origins, and 0 cosmic entities manipulating our slashers. You know how in Freddy vs. Jason, the plot is driven almost entirely by Freddy and Jason? No god put them together, their backstories weren't intertwined, there was no great recontextualization of their universes, and there was no world-ending battle? Yeah, well, every single fucking script that came before the finished film had one or more of these things, which is why they all failed to get made. The final film is criminally simple. Freddy is a godlike being who manipulates people for his own desires, and Jason is a simple-minded, immortal killer. Here is a very natural sequence of events that would occur if the former was aware of the latter. That's the same approach I'm taking to the War of the Dark Hearts. So now the title is just meant to evoke images of carnage, death, darkness, large-scale destruction, and bloodshed, because that's what you'd imagine would happen if Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, Chucky, and all these other slashers existed in one universe and operated at the same time. Whew, that was a lot of fun, guys. Thank you to everyone who submitted a question. I'll probably do another one when I'm closer to 10 or 50k subscribers if I manage to get that far. For the Haddonfield Registry, I'm Mr. October. Good night.